Once one of the most magnificent terminus stations in the UK, Bradford Exchange, unlike many British railway stations, was a perfect mixture of being conveniently located, spacious, and grand, its gigantic twin-arch roofs being a monument to the architecture and financial prowess of the company that was instrumental in its formation, only for the rapidly changing face of Britain's transport scene to see this once important structure be levelled and replaced by an isolated road rail interchange. Bradford Exchange Station was owed to an Act of Parliament passed in 1846, which authorised the Manchester and Leeds Railway, which was renamed a year later to the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway, to build a line from Sowerby Bridge to Bradford and onward to Leeds, as part of their main line from Manchester Victoria Station, across the Pennines via Hebden Bridge and Halifax, to Leeds, on what is now known as the Calder Valley Line, and would see the creation of a new station within Bradford city centre, making it the second station to serve Bradford after Market Street Station, which had opened on July 1, 1846, and was operated by George Stephenson's rival Leeds and Bradford Railway. Bradford Drake Street, as it was originally known, was located on a spur which ran down from the Calder Valley Line at Bowling, approximately 1.1 miles to the south, although the topography of this route would be one that caused major setbacks during the steam era, with departing trains being required to climb at a gradient of 1 in 50, before summiting at the 1,648-yard Bowling Tunnel, which ran through to Low Moor Station and Depot, the arduous ascent often requiring the assistance of up to 2 banking engines for lengthy expresses bound for Halifax, Huddersfield and Manchester. Drake Street was eventually opened on May 9, 1850, and comprised a 2-track island platform decorated in an Italianate style by local architect Eli Milnes, with a 120-foot by 63-foot train shed providing cover for passengers against the harsh Yorkshire elements, although the original station was not warmly received, as it didn't provide much in the way of lighting for the platforms, while the low level of the train shed roof gave a claustrophobic feel to those passing through, the reality being that Drake Street wasn't meant to be the Lancashire and Yorkshire's main terminus for Bradford, but instead a secondary facility to their own major centre at the nearby Adolphus Street Station. Following the final extension of the Calder Valley Line from Bowling Tunnel to Wortley, Holbeck and Leeds, which formed the Leeds Direct Line which bypassed Bradford entirely, the Leeds, Bradford and Halifax Junction Railway, which had running powers over Lancashire and Yorkshire trackage, constructed the much larger and grander Adolphus Street Station during 1854 on a spur that diverged west from the direct line, this 6-track facility being a well laid out and spacious terminal with a substantial train shed, 4 platform faces made up of 2 side platforms and a central island, central roads for running round, a concourse that hosted multiple offices and passenger facilities, such as waiting rooms, a telegraph office and the booking office, and was even home to its own goods yard to the east of the station with numerous sidings, a large coal depot to the north with engine shed and turntable, and a coaling stage to the south. The problem with Adolphus Street was that it was approximately 1 mile from the city centre and situated at the top of a very steep hill, meaning, in a time before buses, it was extremely unpopular among potential passengers, who instead opted to use the rival Market Street Station, which was located at the northern end of the High Street, and therefore, in 1867, the Great Northern Railway, which had acquired the Leeds, Bradford and Halifax Junction Railway in 1865, opted to replace Adolphus Street as its main terminus by combining all passenger operations at the far better located Drake Street, creating a new link which was 3/4 of a mile in length that ran around in a loop and joined the line heading south out of Drake Street, while also providing a link to the Great Northern Railway's extensive Queensbury lines, which diverged immediately south of the station and passed underneath the main Calder Vale line to Halifax, travelling west to the City Road goods depot and beyond to Queensbury, Halifax St Paul's, Denham, Cullingworth and eventually Keighley on the now preserved Keighley and Worth Valley Railway. To accommodate this, Drake Street Station was enlarged to 4 tracks through the simple addition of a second island platform, and with the movement of services east out of Bradford to these new facilities, Adolphus Street was closed to passengers on January 7, 1867, but would remain a goods station until final closure in May 1972, the arrival of Leeds and London services operated by the Great Northern Railway, thereby making Drake Street a joint station between it and the Lancashire and Yorkshire's mainline services to Manchester. But this created problems which couldn't be accommodated by the meagre improvements made through the expansion of the site to 4 tracks. At its peak, 125 services made use of Drake Street on a daily basis, of which 60 were Great Northern services, while the rest were Lancashire and Yorkshire passenger and goods trains serving Bradford, with problems exacerbated further during market days when the shipment of freight from across the Pennines doubled, meaning the terminus was often highly congested with delays abundant. the ability for signalmen to clear sections and allow for timely departures hampered by the fact that, among the passenger and freight trains, dozens of banking engines were on the go at any given time in order to assist trains up the steep gradients both to the east and the south, before returning light to carry out their next duties. In 1888, at a cost of £8,000, or £726,000 in 2022, the station was expanded greatly to accommodate 10 platforms, which would be housed under 2 arched roofs that were 450 feet long, 100 feet wide, and 80 feet high, and would be constructed of wrought iron that was rested at the outer sides on plain stone walls and classical Corinthian-style columns down the middle. Although despite the terminus being the Lancashire and Yorkshire and Great Northern's main station for Bradford, the facility never featured a formal frontage or grand station building, with passengers instead entering the terminus by way of an opening in the northwest side. Operations of the rebuilt station were split between the two halves, with platforms 1 to 5 belonging to the Lancashire and Yorkshire at the western end, and platforms 6 to 10 operated by the Great Northern at the eastern end, thus seeing the station rechristened to Bradford Exchange upon the completion of the revised terminus layout, both sides of the station hosting their own turntable and sidings, with the Great Northern side having a small goods area and warehouse known as Vicar Lane, with the entire Great Northern section being built on the former Lancashire and Yorkshire goods area, while the Lancashire and Yorkshire itself operated their own 5-road large warehouse on the other side of Bridge Street, which had opened in 1884, access to and from the station being, as per the platform layout, split between the two companies which operated the facility, although crossovers did exist between the two exit tracks, which allowed for trains to run between Leeds and Halifax via Bradford, and vice versa, subject to reversing at the dead-end Exchange station. The 1920s and 30s were the peak period for Bradford Exchange, as following the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway's amalgamation into the London and North Western Railway from January 1st, 1922, later to be grouped into the London, Midland and Scottish Railway under the Railways Act of 1921, and the Great Northern's absorption into the London and North Eastern Railway under the same act, the station provided widespread travel to destinations across the country, including Transpennine services to Manchester, Warrington, Liverpool, Crewe and North Wales along the Calder Valley line, and high-density commuter services to Leeds, York, Harrogate and Hull via the Great Northern's former route, as well as a direct service to London King's Cross, which avoided central Leeds by way of the Wortley Curve near Holbeck, even providing, from 1935, through coaches on the Yorkshire Pullman, which would join the main train from Harrogate and Leeds at Doncaster before proceeding south to the capital. Following World War II, however, Bradford Exchange, as with a majority of the railway network now taken over by the nationalised British Railways, faced a steep decline as the aged and highly under-maintained system was overtaken by car and bus alternatives on short-distance and commuter routes, and domestic air travel on long-distance services, the appearance of motorways, such as the M1 in 1968, and the opening of a new runway at Leeds Bradford Airport to allow for larger jet airliners and turboprops to work internal flights to London Heathrow, hitting passenger levels on Yorkshire's railways incredibly hard, and with the network having been geographically compromised by winding river valleys and steep inclines, traffic was rapidly dropping away as steam-powered trains struggled to compete. With fewer passengers came lower profits, and without the ability for British Railways, based on its strictly controlled government subsidy, to enact routine repairs on its many ornate station buildings from the grandiose era of Victorian rail transport, a sweeping cull was conducted which saw many iconic and opulent terminus stations downsized, relocated or closed completely, so as to reduce overhead. Among the more infamous examples of this demolition spree being London Euston, Birmingham New Street, Birmingham Snow Hill, Birkenhead Woodside, Liverpool Central High Level, and many more. Bradford Exchange was unfortunately no exception, starting on October 2, 1967, as in a bid to reduce costs during the final withdrawal of steam on the UK mainline network, the expansive steam shed at Low Moor, situated at the summit of the lines heading south towards Halifax, was closed after 101 years of use, this depot having the distinction of being the last outpost of the iconic L&ER Thompson Class B1, as the depot's operation fell under the auspices of the North Eastern region, and was also the last surviving steam shed in the Bradford area. During routine maintenance being conducted in the same year, inspections of the Bridge Street overpass which crossed the station throat, together with the severely run-down twin overall train sheds, revealed advanced corrosion which would be extremely costly to address, while the large 10-platform facility, complete with 2 booking offices and a vast array of passenger conveniences, was barely seeing the traffic it had once enjoyed during its days as a joint station between the Lancashire and Yorkshire and the Great Northern Railways, and thus, with no easy way of finding a reuse for the grand structure, British Rail opted to sell off the former station ground and build a new 4-track terminus approximately 50 yards south of the existing site, this new facility costing £7 million, and would integrate a brand new bus station to form a road rail interchange. On January 4, 1973, the brand new Bradford Exchange station was officially opened, comprising 4 platforms partially covered by concrete canopies and served by a small station building, while in 1977, as part of a desire by local authorities to encourage bus usership, a huge ridge and furrowed translucent overall roof, constructed of glass and steel, was built atop the bus station element of the facility by West Yorkshire PTE, this gigantic structure being hailed as a showpiece of modern design that could accommodate combined railway, coach and bus operations and serve large numbers of passengers efficiently, the roof giving an air of spaciousness and accommodation that was somewhat unique to bus station facilities in the UK, mimicking the opulent overall roof structures of the many Titanic railway stations that had come before. As for the original Bradford Exchange, upon the transfer of all services to the new station in January 1973, the tracks were lifted and the derelict structure, bereft of glass in its forlorn overall roofs, was left to stagnate until 1976, after which the Grand Victorian building was torn down to make way initially for a car park, before being replaced by the Bradford Crown Court, the development of this building itself being mired in controversy, as during the early development of the courthouse, its architectural designer, businessman John Paulson, was arrested and charged on June 22, 1973, with corruption in connection to the issuing of bribes when awarding building contracts. Some of Paulson's other works including the Leeds International Swimming Pool, Pontefract Library, Cannon Street Railway Station in London, and British Railways House, which partially occupies the footprint of Leeds City Railway Station. The name Bradford Exchange would live on at the new station until 1983, where, in order to signify the connection of bus and train at the facility, it was renamed to its current title of Bradford Interchange, and Bradford was made a compulsory stop on the route between Leeds, Halifax and Manchester following the closure of the Leeds Direct line at Bowling in May 1964, despite the fact that all trains are required to reverse at the dead-end station. Bradford Interchange even maintaining a direct service to London King's Cross, using Deltix and later Intercity 125 sets until October 1988, after which London to Bradford expresses were routed to the former Market Street station, now known as Bradford Foster Square. Today, Bradford Interchange remains a major stop on the Calder Valley line, and is served by a variety of TransPennine Express services to Halifax, Hebden Bridge, Huddersfield, Manchester and Leeds, and a revived direct service to London King's Cross with Grand Central, which works 5 trains per day between London and Bradford via Halifax and Pontefract, using Class 180 units, although the once grand roof above the bus station element of the site is now long gone, as in 1999 it was torn down so as to accommodate a rebuilding of the bus facilities, which opened in 2001, leaving the existing site a functional but incredibly stark place when compared to the former grandeur it once enjoyed as the formidable Bradford Exchange station. To summarise, Bradford Exchange, like many of its contemporaries, was a victim of a rapidly changing transport world, where once the railways had enjoyed a monopoly on both long and short distance travel, the exponential rise of cars, buses and domestic air services, which illustrated speed and flexibility that far exceeded British Railways' archaic steam-hauled passenger trains, meaning the justification for such an enormous facility was rapidly swept away, and as with other grand terminal stations, fell victim to the wrecker's ball, and is now but a memory in Britain's long and distinguished railway history.